At 30,000 feet above the pulsing grid of the Midwest, a woman whose net worth was measured in billions of dollars abruptly ceased breathing. 53 passengers were involuntary witnesses to her sudden death. Some recoiled in shock, clutching at their seats. Others froze into statues of detached fear. In business class, a man expertly angled his iPhone camera, instantly framing the scene, his mind already calculating the maximum viral impact of the caption for his forthcoming social media post. But in seat 37B, jammed agonizingly between a non-functional laboratory service door and the source of a continuously screaming infant, a man whose worn sneakers were held together with patches of gray duct tape stood up. His hands, perpetually raw and cracked, bore the physical proof of scrubbing corporate toilets at the stroke of midnight. Beside him, his 8-year-old daughter fiercely clutched a half-eaten granola bar, the fragile remnant of their only meal since the prior morning. His mother was currently slipping away in a hospital bed 2,000 miles away in Phoenix. He had precisely 3 hours and 47 minutes remaining to reach her side and speak a final goodbye. He saved the billionaire's life in a precise 2 minutes and 53 seconds. Then he simply vanished. No name exchanged, no reward requested, no trace left behind. What Vivian Ashford would eventually uncover about this man would not just surprise her. It would fundamentally shatter every ingrained belief she held about success, financial worth, and the entire ecosystem of invisible people she had unconsciously walked past throughout her long, privileged life. Vivian Ashford arrived at the 47th floor of Willis Tower well before the first hint of dawn, a ritual she had maintained every single day for the past 15 years. The floor stretched beneath her feet, a silent empire of polished steel and glass. Through the sprawling, floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago lay magnificent and vast, a kingdom she had relentlessly constructed using maxed-out credit cards, an absolute refusal to accept failure, and an iron will. Her Starbucks coffee was black, intensely hot, and undiluted. She permitted no room for complications, in her coffee or in her life. The Bloomberg terminal screens cycled through pre-market futures, casting cold blue light on her focused face while her Wall Street Journal lay open, specific sections flagged with sharp yellow highlighter. Only the parts that truly mattered. 19 days. 19 days until the Ashford Medical Corporation IPO, currently valued publicly at $4.2 billion. Her phone vibrated quietly on the desk, cutting through the silence. A text message from Roland, her younger brother. Board getting restless about Q3 projections. Some members questioning leadership priorities. Lunch tomorrow. We should strategize, sis. She deleted the message instantly, without pause or reply. Roland had been hungrily circling her executive chair since the day she first incorporated the company. 15 years he had dedicated himself to waiting for her to make a fatal mistake. 15 years of calculated observation, maneuvering, and precisely positioning himself for the single moment she showed a tremor of weakness. Dr. Margot Castellaniano, 68 years old, with sharp eyes and a perfectly managed shock of silver hair, appeared in the doorway. Margot was the only person left on Earth who dared to call Vivian by her first name without explicitly asking permission. Viv, you look like death warmed over. When did you last get proper sleep? Did you eat anything that didn't come out of a vending machine? Sleep is a luxury for people who aren't 19 days away from commanding the largest medical technology IPO in NASDAQ history, Margot. Margot stepped further into the office, studying her with genuine clinical concern. Your mother worked herself into an early grave, Vivian. Heart attack at 51. Alone in her office at 2 in the morning. You were 24. Don't make me stand here and watch history repeat itself. Vivian kept her gaze fixed on the market reports, saying nothing. Her mother had bequeathed her only one inheritance. The deep, bone-aching terror of utter poverty, and an unshakable iron determination to never be weak, never be dependent, and never, ever be invisible again. Vivian had constructed walls so impossibly high that no one could look inside them. She had fabricated armor so incredibly thick that nothing could possibly penetrate it. She did not yet comprehend that the armor she relied upon had also, efficiently, become a prison. 2,000 miles west, Callum Renfield had been running on fumes for 37 consecutive hours. His threadbare sneakers were held together with duct tape on the inside, concealed where no casual observer would ever see the repair. The plane ticket currently burning a hole in his jacket pocket. A meager $139 on Spirit Airlines represented the total summation of 3 months of skipped meals and creative accounting maneuvers with the monthly electric bill. Rosie walked beside him through O'Hare's relentlessly fluorescent corridors. 8 years old, her perpetually brown hair determinately escaping its ponytail, she clutched a faded, tattered frozen backpack containing the sum total of everything precious in her small world. A one-eyed teddy bear named Mr. Patches, which her mother had bought from a hospital gift shop the day before she died. A small, creased photograph of that mother in a wedding dress. A woman Rosie had, tragically, never actually met, and the precious half of a Nature Valley granola bar that Callum had salvaged from his Amazon warehouse breakroom earlier that week. "Daddy, why do airplane tickets cost so much?" "Because they carry us very fast to the people we love, Rosie girl." She considered this weighty statement with the intense gravity that only 8-year-olds are capable of summoning. "Then love must be really expensive. Is that why we don't have very much?" The innocence of the question sliced through him like surgical steel. "We have plenty of love, sweetheart. We just don't have plenty of money. They're very different things. Ms. Hernandez says in America they're the same thing. She says that's why her sister can't afford her medicine." Callum had no immediate answer for that. Some brutal truths were simply too heavy for airport terminals at 5 o'clock in the morning. His phone vibrated against his thigh. Phoenix General Hospital. "Mr. Renfield, this is Dr. Patterson. Your mother's condition has deteriorated significantly overnight. If you wish to see her, you should come now. I'm truly sorry." Lorraine Renfield had raised him entirely alone after his father had abandoned them for a 23-year-old secretary when Callum was 6. She had endured double shifts at Denny's for 19 years straight, ensuring he could graduate from nursing school without drowning under the crushing weight of student debt. When Karen died, when the crushing medical bills mounted to $847,000, Lorraine had instantly sold her only car and moved into a scorching trailer park in Phoenix to help him survive. Now she was succumbing to pancreatic cancer, and he had exactly 3 hours and 47 minutes left to say his final goodbye. The plane lifted off from Chicago, carrying its fragile cargo of separate lives toward entirely separate, predetermined destinations. In the rarefied air of first class, Vivian meticulously reviewed complex IPO documents on a custom laptop that cost more than Callum earned in 2 months. In row 37, Rosie fell asleep, resting heavily against her father's bony shoulder. Mr. Patches clutched tight to her chest, utterly exhausted from the brutal 4M. "Wake up." 35 minutes into the flight, Vivian reached for her water glass. Her throat tightened abruptly. Strange. The catered shrimp lunch her assistant had ordered. A sudden, intense tingling began spreading across her lips. Her chest constricted violently, feeling as though steel bands were relentlessly wrapping around her ribs. She attempted to inhale and found she could not. The cabin erupted into immediate chaos. Someone screamed nearby. Flight attendants rushed forward, their faces pale with shock and mounting panic. The man in 3C pulled out his iPhone, instantly pressing record. No one moved toward the convulsing woman. Vivian's peripheral vision began to gray at the edges. She was dying at 30,000 feet, surrounded by 53 strangers, utterly alone despite the crowd. All that concentrated money, all that hard-won power, all those years spent building an empire, totally, tragically useless in the face of a simple, lethal allergic reaction. Then, hands touched her face. Gentle hands, yet rough hands. Large, calloused hands that moved with practiced, absolute precision. Someone tilted her head back. Fingers found her carotid pulse with the certainty of long, deep experience. "Ma'am, I'm a nurse. Stay with me. You are going to be okay." Through the terrifying gray fog, a face slowly materialized. It was not polished, not expensive, just a man. Exhausted, deeply worried, but kind. Brown eyes, holding hers like absolute anchors in a violent storm. Behind him, a small face, a little girl with perpetually tangled brown hair and a one-eyed teddy bear, watching the terrifying scene with solemn terror. "Daddy, is the lady going to die?" "No, baby. She's going to be just fine." He said it like an unshakable promise, like he possessed some actual power over death. And somehow, impossibly, Vivian believed him. Callum's hands remembered everything. 8 long years had passed since he practiced nursing, 8 years dedicated to scrubbing greasy toilets and mechanically loading boxes in a warehouse. But true muscle memory does not forget. Airway clear, pulse weak and thready, lips cyanotic, classic anaphylaxis severe and progressing fast. "She's in anaphylactic shock. I need the emergency medical kit now. Does anyone have an EpiPen?" The chief flight attendant scrambled in panic. Callum efficiently assessed, calculated, and prepared. The kit arrived. He grabbed the EpiPen, visually confirmed the dosage, and positioned it firmly against her lateral thigh. *1, 2, 3. Hold for 10 seconds. Breathe with me. In and out, slow and steady. You're doing great. Color swiftly returned to Vivian's face. The fictional steel bands loosened their grip. She gasped, coughed, and finally breathed. Applause erupted spontaneously throughout the entire cabin. The flight attendant touched his shoulder, relief overwhelming her fear. "Sir, you just saved her life. Can we please get your name for our records? The airline will certainly want to recognize." Callum checked his watch. His face drained of color. "Monitor her very closely. Second dose in 15 to 20 minutes if symptoms return. Have paramedics waiting at the gate." He stood up, took Rosie's small hand. "Sir, your name?" But he was already moving rapidly back down the aisle, back to cramped row 37, back to deliberate invisibility. Vivian struggled to lift her head. She caught a final glimpse through the surging chaos. A faded jacket, worn shoes, a child's small hand clasped in a larger, rougher one. Then nothing. He had dissolved into the crowd of anonymous passengers as completely as if he had never existed at all. Callum made it to Phoenix General Hospital with precisely 11 minutes to spare. Lorraine's eyes opened one last time when she heard his voice. She reached for his rough hand, the same hand that had just hours earlier pulled a complete stranger back from the absolute edge of death. Her lips moved, the words tasting like the last vestiges of her strength. "Don't be afraid to live again, Callum. Promise me. You've been hiding for 8 years. Karen wouldn't want that for you. Rosie needs you whole, not just surviving. Find something. Find someone. Let yourself be seen." "I promise, Mom." She offered him a fragile smile, closed her eyes, and quietly slipped away. 2,000 miles east, Vivian Ashford lay in the sterile luxury of a private hospital suite at Northwestern Memorial. Machines beeped, confirming her continued survival. She was haunted by a single, desperate question she could not answer. Who saves a stranger's life and asks for absolutely nothing in return? The investigation began the very next morning. Vivian hired Declan Thorne, a former agent from the FBI's Chicago field office, at a flat rate of $500 an hour. She did not care about the exorbitant cost. She simply needed to understand. "Your mystery man is a ghost," Thorne reported 2 weeks later, sliding a folder across her enormous desk. 847 passengers on that flight. Dozens of men traveling with children. But this guy, it's like he's practiced being invisible. Security cameras never catch his face clearly. "Practiced," Vivian repeated, looking at the ceiling. "Some people learn not to be seen, Ms. Ashford. Usually means they've spent a long time being overlooked." The long-awaited breakthrough came from cross-referencing emergency room admissions and death records within a 500-mile radius of Phoenix. Terminal cancer patient Lorraine Renfield, 67, had died the same day as the flight. Next of kin listed, Callum James Renfield, son. Thorne slid the complete dossier, the inventory of a destroyed life, across her mahogany desk. Callum James Renfield, 38 years old. Former registered nurse. License still active but unemployed in healthcare since 2016. Bachelor of Science in Nursing from Rush University. Student debt paid off through a desperate bankruptcy settlement. Current employment: night custodian at Willis Tower. $75 an hour, no benefits. Warehouse associate at Amazon. $50 an hour, but classified as seasonal for the last 14 months. Weekend handyman, cash basis, whatever he can find on Craigslist. Previous employment. Northwestern Memorial Hospital ICU, 2009 to 2016. Exemplary performance reviews all 7 years. Resigned citing personal reasons. Thorne paused, letting the data sink in. Spouse, Karen Bellamy Renfield. Deceased December 2016. Cause of death. Postpartum hemorrhage. Complications during childbirth. Medical debt incurred. $847,312. Daughter, Rosie Mae Renfield. Age 8. Free lunch program at Shields Elementary. Income qualified. Current bank balance. $247. Eviction notice filed October 15th. Vivian stared down at the file, specifically at the number. The man who had saved her $3 billion life had $247 to his name. There's more, Thorne said quietly. His mother's funeral was 6 days ago. Small service, almost no one there. He looked completely broken, Ms. Ashford. Like a man who'd finally stopped fighting. She found him in the vast, heat-shimmering parking lot of Phoenix General Hospital 8 days after his mother's death. He stood beside an ancient Honda Civic, 251,000 miles on the odometer, staring blankly at it like he'd forgotten the mechanism for opening the door. 73 hours without sleep had hollowed him out, leaving him operating on nothing but sheer habit and the desperate need to simply keep moving. He heard the sharp click of her Louboutin heels on the asphalt and turned. Everything about her outfit screamed money. The Hermes scarf, the tailored suit, the designer sunglasses probably worth more than his Civic. He almost didn't recognize the woman from the plane. Then he did. "I've been looking for you." His laugh scraped out of him, hollow and intensely bitter. "You shouldn't have bothered. You saved my life. Anyone would have done the same thing. But they didn't," she countered, stepping closer. 53 people watched me die. One man filmed it for TikTok. You were the only one who moved. Silence stretched between them, thick with the unsaid. The dry Arizona wind carried fine red dust across the parking lot pavement. "I had somewhere to be," he said finally. "My mother was dying." Asterisk past tense. Asterisk she registered the word immediately. "I know. I'm sorry. I found the funeral notice. I should have come." He shook his head sharply. "Don't want thanks. Don't want sympathy. Don't want anything. Just want to get through today. Tomorrow. That's the entire goal." She noticed the corner of the eviction paper sticking out of his jacket pocket. "Let me help you." His face instantly hardened, becoming a mask of defense. "I don't need charity. This isn't." "Then what is it?" His voice rose dangerously, something inside him finally breaking free. "Guilt money? You feel bad that the guy who saved your billion-dollar life can't make rent? That my daughter qualifies for free lunch because I work 3 crushing jobs and still can't break the poverty level?" He stepped closer, 8 years of intensely suppressed rage finally finding its target and an outlet. "I was a nurse, Miss Ashford. A good one. 8 years in the ICU. Saved hundreds of lives. And my wife bled out on a delivery table because some insurance algorithm needed 47 minutes to authorize a procedure that should have been done immediately." His voice cracked completely. "The system you're part of, the system that made you a billionaire, it killed my wife, it bankrupted my family, it stripped me of my career, and now it's taking the only home my daughter has ever known." Vivian said nothing for a long, painful moment. Then she did something she had never once done in 42 years of relentlessly clawing her way to the top. She lowered herself slowly onto the hot concrete curb, her $2,200 tailored dress collecting Arizona dust. "You're right." He stared down at her, momentarily stunned by the surrender. "You're right about everything," she repeated. "I run a medical technology company. We build the diagnostic systems, the high-end imaging tools, the things that help hospitals work faster. But the system that uses those tools." She looked up at him, and for the first time, he saw something genuine crack in her polished armor. "It's broken. It has been broken my entire career, and I have done nothing about it because fixing it doesn't show up positively on quarterly earnings reports. She pulled off her designer sunglasses. Her eyes were red, rimmed with deep exhaustion and something that looked terrifyingly close to shame. I almost died on that plane, and the only person who helped me was someone the system had completely failed. Someone invisible to every single person sitting in first class. Callum sat down beside her, not close, but not far either. What do you want from me? My foundation runs a healthcare reentry program, she said, her voice steady now. Scholarships for nurses who left the field. Housing assistance, childcare support, full tuition for recertification, guaranteed job placement. In exchange, 3 years working in medically underserved communities. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to apply. Because your license is still active. Because you saved my life with skills you haven't utilized in 8 years. And that means something profound. She paused, choosing her next words with care. And because I need to believe that what I've built actually matters for something more than a stock price. Callum was quiet for a long, reflective time. Then he spoke, looking out at the shimmering heat. My mother's last words. She made me promise not to be afraid. Afraid of what? He looked at this woman from a world he had never touched, sitting in the dry dirt with him like it was the most natural thing in the world. Living, I guess, she said. You've been hiding for 8 years. Said Karen wouldn't want that. Said Rosie needs me whole, not just surviving. Was she right? She was always right, even when I didn't want her to be. He picked up a pebble, turning it over and over in his cracked, calloused fingers. This program. This work, not charity. Every penny earned, every certification passed, every patient served. You prove yourself or you're out. And Rosie gets foundation housing in a safe neighborhood. After-school program covered. Healthcare for both of you, Real Healthcare. He thought about the eviction sheriff scheduled to arrive in 39 hours, about the cramped apartment he had lined up with Mrs. Delgado, about Lorraine's fading voice. Asterisk, don't be afraid. He extended his rough hand. Okay. Vivian took it. The connection was electric. Unexpected. Terrifying for both of them. Okay. Roland Ashford learned about his sister's new philanthropic project within the week. He sat in his pristine corner office, his Brioni suit perfectly pressed, reviewing the reports his private investigator had compiled. The former janitor, the large scholarship commitment, Vivian's black car discreetly parked outside a Southside apartment building at 11:43 at night. Asterisk perfect. At the next board meeting, he planted the first calculated seeds of professional doubt. My sister's recent behavior genuinely concerns me. Significant foundation resources diverted to locate a single economy-class passenger. Now she's sponsoring a custodian who abandoned his critical medical career 8 years ago. Dr. Margot Castellano shut him down instantly. Vivian's judgment built this company from nothing, Roland. Roland smiled politely, but the gesture did not reach his cold eyes. Loyalty is admirable, Margot, but loyalty and fiduciary responsibility are not always aligned. He knew he could wait. He had been waiting 15 years. A few more months meant nothing. When Vivian's misguided charity case inevitably imploded, he would be perfectly ready to step in. The transformation began slowly, painfully. Callum attended intensive classes during the day, pharmacology, advanced cardiac life support, trauma protocols. He studied until 2 in the morning, coffee cups accumulating like monuments to his exhaustion. Textbooks bristled with sticky notes in 3 different colors, denoting concepts, warnings, and patient care procedures. The foundation apartment was small but pristine. It was located on a tree-lined street in Humboldt Park, where the neighbors actually smiled and waved. Rosie had her own room for the first time since the bankruptcy. She immediately covered the walls with cheerful butterfly stickers and placed Mr. Patch's and her mother's photograph prominently on the nightstand. That first night, Callum stood silently in her doorway, watching her sleep soundly in a real bed instead of a mattress on the floor, and he cried until he had nothing left to give. His hands, however, remembered everything. The first time back in Scrubs, the sterile fabric felt foreign and yet achingly familiar simultaneously. The first time holding a stethoscope, hearing a living heartbeat through those earpieces without immediately seeing Karen's face flash before his eyes was a victory. Vivian appeared occasionally, maintaining a strict professional distance. But she brought him piping hot coffee when he studied late. She helped Rosie with her math homework when Callum had clinical rotations at the local free clinic. Neither of them discussed what was slowly, tentatively growing between them. Neither of them was remotely ready. For months into the program, Vivian found him in the foundation cafeteria at 3:17 in the morning. He sat completely alone, his head buried in his hands, the massive pharmacology textbook open to a chapter he had read 9 times. His final exam was in 6 hours. Can't sleep either. He looked up. She was wearing faded jeans and a Yale sweatshirt. No makeup, no armor. More human and unguarded than he had ever seen her. Can't remember the difference between metoprolol and carvedilol, he confessed. 8 years is a long time to be away from the hospital floor. She sat down quietly across from him. Tell me about her. About who? Your wife, Karen. Tell me about her. He was quiet for so long that she began to worry she had terribly overstepped. Then the words came, 8 years of rigid silence finally shattering. She taught kindergarten, special education, kids with learning differences, behavioral challenges, the kids nobody else had the patience for. She'd come home covered in finger paint and glitter, smelling like Play-Doh, telling me about some 5-year-old who said his first full sentence, or tied his shoes without help. His voice caught, tight with grief. She got pregnant with Rosie. Easy pregnancy, no complications. Then the delivery. Everything went wrong at once. Placental abruption, massive hemorrhage. I was there. I was a nurse. I knew exactly what was happening. He stared down hard at the laminated tabletop. But I wasn't her doctor. I was her husband. I had to stand there and watch while they waited for authorization. Vivian reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. The authorization felt like it took forever. Every second I watched her slip further away, knowing exactly what was happening, utterly powerless to stop it. By the time they finally approved the surgery, it was too late. She looked at me, blood everywhere, monitors screaming, and whispered, "Take care of our Rosie, Cal. Promise me." Then her hand went limp in mine, and she was gone. That's why you left nursing. Every single patient became her. Every code blue. I heard those monitors screaming the same song. I couldn't function, so I ran. Took jobs where I couldn't fail anyone, where nobody depended on me to stay alive. But you saved me. He met her eyes, a strange clarity returning to them. You weren't a patient. You were just a person who needed help. My body moved before my brain could stop it from happening. Maybe that's who you really are, she said softly. Someone who moves when everyone else freezes. Rosie understood things that adults routinely missed. She found Vivian alone on the foundation playground one afternoon, swinging half-heartedly on equipment clearly designed for children a quarter of her age. Do you know how to swing properly? Daddy says grown-ups forget. Vivian tried to recall the last time she had sat on a swing. 35 years, at least. Rosie demonstrated the proper technique. Vivian attempted it and nearly fell off the seat. Rosie laughed, a sound like musical wind chimes. Then she grew serious. Miss Vivian, can I ask you something really important? Anything, Rosie. Do you like my daddy? Like him? Vivian's heart stopped completely. Because he talks about you constantly. He says you're brave and smarter than anyone he knows, and that you possess the special gift. You see people that everyone else overlooks. He told me you saw him when the rest of the world looked right through him, treating him like a window pane instead of a person. Your daddy truly said that? Rosie gave a solemn nod. I think you'd make a wonderful girlfriend for him. But I need you to promise me something very important. You can only stay if you're not planning to leave because Mommy left and Grandma Lorraine left, and I just can't bear to see Daddy sad again. Vivian immediately dropped to her knees, meeting the little girl's gaze. Rosie, I promise you, I would never intentionally hurt your daddy. Not ever, for any reason. Rosie's eyes, the exact luminous shade captured in the faded photographs of Karen, searched Vivian's face with an unnerving, adult intensity. That's what Mommy said, too, Rosie whispered, the innocence momentarily gone. But she still left. Your mommy didn't choose to leave, sweetheart. Vivian explained gently, touching Rosie's cheek. She wanted to stay more than anything in the world. How do you know that? Because any mother who was lucky enough to have you would never, ever willingly choose to go. Rosie paused, processing this deep truth. Then, she threw her small arms around Vivian's neck in a fierce hug. Okay, I believe you, but if you make Daddy cry, I'll be really, truly mad. A tight, painful knot suddenly unlocked deep in Vivian's chest. A place she hadn't even realized was barricaded shut for decades. Deal, Vivian confirmed, hugging the child back tightly. Roland chose the most spectacular moment, the annual Foundation Gala, to strike. 500 influential guests filled the opulent grand ballroom of the Four Seasons Chicago. Major donors, high-profile board members, powerful politicians, and hungry press photographers. Vivian was shielded in a dramatic navy Valentino gown. Callum, meticulously dressed in his first tailored suit since Karen's funeral, a service Vivian had arranged with someone whose cost she tactfully kept secret, felt acutely out of place. Rosie had stayed home with Mrs. Delgado. Too many fancy people, Callum had rationalized. Though the truth was he wanted to shield her from the sharp edges of this world. Roland took the stage mid-event, his voice resonating through the room with a carefully rehearsed tone of concern. Before we continue, I must bring to light some serious concerns about the Foundation's operations that warrant immediate public attention. The massive screen behind him instantly illuminated, displaying unflattering, candid photographs of Callum and Vivian. Sharing coffee in the Foundation cafeteria, walking toward his humble apartment building, and worst of all, her luxury car parked outside his place at 11:43 at night. A former custodian, Roland announced with thinly veiled contempt. A man who abandoned his nursing career for 8 long years, was fast-tracked through our rigorous program while far more qualified candidates remain waiting. He was gifted housing, tuition, childcare, and benefits worth over $175,000. All while my sister personally supervises his progress. A collective gasp rippled through the polished crowd. Phones immediately rose, hundreds of screens turning toward the stage like metallic flowers seeking the sun. I am absolutely not suggesting anything improper, Roland lied smoothly. I am merely asking, is this an appropriate use of donor funds? Or has our CEO confused noble philanthropy with deeply personal interest? Callum instantly felt 500 pairs of eyes pivot to him. Eyes that were wealthy, polished, and utterly judging. It was the confirmation of everything he had secretly feared. That he didn't belong, that he was nothing more than a desperate charity case, that he would forever be the invisible man watching from the cheap seats. His deepest insecurity was being broadcast and confirmed before an audience of people who had never worked 3 jobs in their lives. He stood up and began walking toward the exit, refusing to run. He was too proud for that. But every agonizing step cost him everything he had left. Callum. He didn't stop. He sat in the suffocating darkness of his apartment, the heavy platinum wedding ring on the chain around his neck feeling like a lead weight. He had been right all along. He didn't belong in her glittering world. Never had, never would. The door creaked open softly. Small, padding footsteps followed. Daddy, Mrs. Delgado said you came home early. Why are you sitting in the dark? Just thinking, Rosie girl. Go back to bed. She ignored him, settling beside him on the worn couch instead. You're sad, I can tell. Is it because of the mean man at the fancy party? What mean man? Ms. Vivian called. She said a mean man said bad things about you in front of everyone. She said he's a liar and she's going to fix it. Rosie nodded decisively. She called, and she said to tell you something very important. She leaned in, delivering the message with perfect solemnity. She said, the invisible man was never invisible to me. Tell him I see him. Tell him I've always seen him. And tell him I am not going anywhere. Something sharp and profound cracked in Callum's chest. A section of his heart that had been frozen solid for the last 8 years. Rosie curled against his side protectively. I see you too, Daddy. You're the best daddy in the world, even when you're sad. The emergency board meeting convened at 9 the next morning. Roland sat confidently at the head of the polished mahogany table, radiating smug anticipation of victory. The board members shifted uncomfortably, their loyalties tested. Margot Castigliano, meanwhile, visibly radiated cold, contained fury. Vivian entered the room, calm, impeccably composed, and utterly dangerous. The board has serious concerns, Roland began, attempting to seize control. The board has concerns, Roland? She cut him off, her voice smooth ice. Or you have concerns? She deliberately placed a thick, heavy folder marked confidential onto the conference table. Since we are championing transparency, allow me to share some recent findings. She looked him dead in the eye. 3 years of comprehensive forensic accounting has revealed a network of shell corporations in the Cayman Islands, and wire transfers systematically routed to accounts registered solely in your name. That amounts to $7 million embezzled from both the corporation and the foundation since 2021. Roland's face instantly drained of all color, turning a sickly gray. The Securities and Exchange Commission has actually been investigating this for 18 months. I've been quietly cooperating, building the case, waiting to see exactly how far your avarice would drive you. Now I know. She turned pointedly to the board. My brother has been systematically stealing from this company for 3 years. When simple embezzlement was insufficient to force me out, he manufactured a scandal. He weaponized a good man's poverty against him, specifically targeting my attempt to help him. She looked directly at Roland one last time. Callum Renfield's scholarship is fully documented, completely transparent, and was awarded through standard foundation protocols. His test scores are in the 97th percentile of all program participants. And, for the record, he has already saved 3 patients' lives during his clinical rotations. Security entered the room then, 2 agents in sharp, dark suits. But your embezzlement? Vivian concluded, her voice devoid of emotion. That's documented, too. Bank records, wire transfers, offshore accounts. The FBI has everything. Vivian. Roland started, desperation rising. Goodbye, Roland. He was efficiently escorted out of the room. The room fell into stunned silence. Vivian addressed the remaining board members, her posture unwavering. If anyone else here has concerns about my judgment, or the allocation of foundation resources, I encourage you to speak now. Because here is what I know to be true. 8 months ago, I almost died on a plane. A man who works 3 jobs and couldn't afford health insurance saved my life. He asked for nothing, expected nothing, and he vanished before anyone could even properly thank him. She paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. That man taught me something profound that I had forgotten while building this company. He taught me that worth isn't measured in inflated stock prices or favorable quarterly earnings reports. It's measured in what you do when no one is watching, in whether you choose to help someone who has absolutely nothing tangible to offer you in return. If this board believes that supporting people like Callum is an inappropriate use of foundation resources, then you can immediately have my resignation. Because I would rather lose this chair than lose the first person who ever truly saw me as something other than a balance sheet. Margot smiled. A slow, genuine expression. I move we immediately table all further discussion of the CEO's personal relationships and refocus entirely on the criminal referral for Roland Ashford. Do I have a second? The vote was swift and unanimous. Callum was waiting patiently in the foundation lobby when Vivian emerged from the elevator 3 hours later. She looked utterly exhausted, yet triumphant, and strangely terrified all at once. Roland's been arrested, she announced simply. The board voted unanimously to support me. Callum closed the distance between them in 3 deliberate strides and pulled her immediately into his arms. She stiffened momentarily, decades of emotional armor resisting the unfamiliar, overwhelming sensation of being completely held. Then, with a shudder, she softened against him, burying her face into his shoulder, her body shaking with silent sobs she had held back for hours. I thought I lost you, she whispered, her voice muffled. When you walked out of that ballroom, I thought you were gone forever. I almost was. His voice was rough with residual fear. Rosie talked me off the ledge. She delivered your message. Vivian pulled back slightly, wiping the tears from her eyes. I meant every single word. I know. He gently touched her face, pushing a stray strand of hair behind her ear. The invisible man sees you too, Vivian. He's always seen you. She laughed through her tears. A brittle, beautiful sound. We're quite a pair, aren't we? A billionaire who doesn't know how to accept love. And a nurse who forgot he deserved to be loved. Maybe we can figure it out together. Maybe we can. They stood there in the vast, empty lobby, two broken people physically holding each other up. Finally ready to stop running from the one thing they both desired most, true connection. 1 year after Flight 1847 landed, Callum stood tall in brand new scrubs, his official ID badge reading, Callum Renfield, RN, clipped securely to his chest. It was his first day as a certified nurse in 8 years. Vivian found him just before his shift began. Nervous? Terrified? Good, she murmured, leaning in to kiss him softly. That means you care. Rosie burst through the door then, her backpack bouncing energetically. Daddy, Miss Vivian, look what I made. She proudly held up a drawing rendered in thick crayon. It depicted 3 stick figures holding hands. A tall one with brown hair, a medium one with sleek black hair and a red dress, and a tiny one with yellow pigtails clinging to a one-eyed teddy bear. It's us, Rosie declared. Ms. Hernandez said, draw your family. So I drew our family. Vivian studied the drawing closely. The tall figure, Callum, had something in his hand, a stethoscope meticulously rendered in purple crayon. The medium figure, Vivian, wore a tiny, unmistakable crown. The small figure stood between them, arms stretched impossibly wide to link both their hands. Why does she have a crown? Vivian asked softly. Because Daddy says you're the queen of your castle. But I think queens get lonely in their castles all by themselves. So I drew you with us instead. Queens need families too. Vivian's breath hitched, a sudden, powerful wave of emotion catching in her throat. And see this. Rosie pointed to the corner of the page, where 2 smaller figures floated among soft clouds and bright yellow crayon stars. That's Mommy and Grandma Lorraine. They're watching us from heaven. Ms. Hernandez says that people we love never really leave. They just watch from somewhere we can't see. Callum's eyes immediately filled with tears. They're smiling because we're happy, Rosie continued, stating it as a simple fact. Mommy wants Daddy to be happy. She told him so, and Grandma Lorraine told him not to be scared. So this drawing is me showing them that he listened. She looked up at both adults with the devastating clarity that only innocent children possess. Because you make Daddy happy, Miss Vivian, and you make me feel safe. And families are the people who make you happy and safe, right? Callum and Vivian exchanged a look that contained their entire complicated history. Rosie's face clouded with sudden, deep worry. Is that okay? To have a new family? Mommy's in heaven and Grandma Lorraine too. But we can still love them and have a new family. Right, Daddy? Callum knelt immediately and pulled her fiercely into his arms. Yes, baby. We can love Mommy and Grandma forever. And still have room for more. Love isn't like money, Rosie. It doesn't run out when you share it. He looked at Vivian over Rosie's head, a promise in his tear-filled gaze. They'd want this. They'd want us to live. Vivian joined the embrace. 3 people, arms intertwined, building something new and sturdy from broken pieces and second-hand hope. That night, long after Rosie had finally fallen asleep, Callum sat alone holding Karen's ring. For 8 years he had worn it religiously against his chest. 8 years of carrying her everywhere. A leaden weight that served as both a comfort and a chain. He held the simple band in his palm and whispered to the darkness. Karen, I think I'm ready. I hope you understand. I will always, always love you. You gave me Rosie. You gave me everything good in my life for so long. He wiped his eyes quickly. But Mom was right. I've been hiding, and there's someone new. She's different. She sees me. She truly sees me. Not the janitor. Not the failed husband who couldn't save you. Just me. He placed the ring gently inside a small, plain wooden box on his dresser. Not throwing it away, not forgetting, but finally making space. "I'm not replacing you," he murmured to the closed box. "I'm just making room, like you told me to. That last night you told me, 'Don't let me be the end of your story, Cal.' I didn't understand then." He closed the box gently, sealing the past. "I understand now." 15 months after a man in duct tape shoes saved a stranger's life at 30,000 feet, Callum and Vivian boarded another flight together. First class this time, heading to a medical conference in Boston. Vivian had insisted on the luxury. Callum had vehemently protested. Rosie had declared, "Let her spoil us, Daddy. That's what families do." Mid-flight, an elderly man in row 3 clutched his chest. Callum was instantly out of his seat before the flight attendant finished the call for medical assistance. Vivian was right behind him, already pulling essential supplies from the overhead medical kit. They worked together, seamless, synchronized. A perfectly forged team built by shared crisis and a trust neither of them had anticipated finding. Pulse check, aspirin administration, vitals monitoring. Their calm voices cut cleanly through the rising passenger panic. The patient was stabilized. Paramedics were waiting at Logan. A young mother who had watched the entire procedure approached them afterward, her eyes wide with open admiration. "How do you two do that? You work like you've been partners forever." Callum smiled. A genuine, easy smile she hadn't seen him wear often enough. "Someone believed I was worth saving. She taught me to believe it, too." Vivian took his hand, intertwining their fingers. "And he taught me what worth really means. That it has absolutely nothing to do with money and everything to do with who you become when no one is watching." They arrived at the Logan Airport terminal. Rosie ran ahead to locate the restroom, Mr. Patches tucked under one arm. Callum and Vivian walked together, their hands linked now. Vivian stopped him. "Your mother made you promise not to be afraid. Are you still afraid?" He brought her calloused hand, the same hand that had saved her life at 30,000 feet. The same hand that had held his dying wife and mother, the same hand that guided his daughter through nightmares and realistic fears of eviction, to his lips. "Not anymore." "Good." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Because I'm terrified, and I need you to be brave enough for both of us." "What scares you?" "Losing this. Losing you. Losing Rosie. Finding out I don't actually deserve happiness after spending 42 years not even knowing what it was." He pulled her closer, his gaze steady. "You deserve everything, Vivian. You saw me when I was invisible. You gave me back my life and my career. You gave Rosie a family. How could you possibly not deserve to be part of what you created?" Rosie reappeared, running back to them. "Are you guys going to kiss? Because Sophie says when grown-ups hold hands and look at each other like that, they're supposed to kiss." They both laughed, the sound surprising them with its ease. "Maybe later," Callum said. "Fine, but can we get dinner first? Like a real family? Because that's what we are now, right? A real family." Callum looked at Vivian. Everything terrifying, everything perfect, everything he had stopped believing was possible 8 years ago when he held Karen's hand and felt her spirit slip away. "Yeah, Rosie girl." Vivian's voice was thick with deep emotion. "That's exactly what we are." They walked toward baggage claim together, Rosie securely in the middle, holding both their hands, swinging slightly with each joyful step. His mother had told him not to be afraid to live. For 8 years he had wrongly assumed living meant surviving. Getting through each day, keeping Rosie fed, keeping the lights on, keeping his head just far enough above water to breathe. But that wasn't living. That was merely existing. Living was letting yourself be seen when you had spent years practicing invisibility. It was accepting essential help when every ounce of pride screamed to refuse it. It was believing you deserved good things when the world had spent 8 years teaching you otherwise. Living was looking at a second chance. A terrifying, impossible, staggeringly beautiful second chance, and bravely saying yes. He had said yes in a dusty parking lot in Phoenix. He had said yes every day since. He would keep saying yes for the rest of his life. Yes to Rosie. Yes to Vivian. Yes to the family they were diligently building from broken pieces. Borrowed hope, and a boundless love that miraculously didn't run out when you shared it. The Invisible Man had finally allowed himself to be seen.